another episode of the Hive Jive. Thank you all for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. And just to give you a heads up, couple little things here real quick. First and foremost, Ken is not going to be with us today. We are doing another interview and we are doing it via Zoom. So there may be a little bit of audio switch up here and there, or you may have like a digital sound. Also, if you hear some random like pounding in the background, they decided to start doing construction on the street outside of my house about 15 minutes before the interview started. So it seems to have quieted down now, but it is a massive backhoe, and I would not be surprised if they don't start again. But as we know, Ken is he is not necessarily so tech savvy, and so doing these Zoom interviews, he cannot join us that easily without me physically being there, which with all the quarantine stuff can't happen. So in place of Ken today, we have a very special guest. We're going to be talking with Steve Jimenez, and Steve is with Hives for Heroes. And Steve and I met each other actually a few years ago at one of the Texas Beekeepers Association events and got to talking about bee removals, and then that kind of led over into their organization and what they do. And I thought for, you know, the national holiday, Independence Day, the 4th of July, everything happening this weekend, that this would be a great interview to put out there. And I think it would be very, very helpful for everybody. So without further ado, Steve, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Trying to hang in there in our lovely Texas summer, which
Absolutely.
has been a little odd this year. Having rain this late in the year and having it like every single day, especially for us, like you're over a little bit closer where you guys have a little bit more of the humidity and the rain and stuff than we do, but it's been kind of strange. I'm not sure how the bees are going to cope.
The bees were angry this past week when we got to them, but everything went well, and we really appreciate you having us on the show. And as you know, from us at Hives for Heroes and the people all over the country that are involved in it, we thank you.
Yeah, well, we thank you. We thank you all for your service. We thank you for what you're currently doing. And we're going to get into that actually here in just a moment and kind of give everybody a really in-depth overview of what Hives for Heroes is, what it stands for, how it helps both veterans and bees, and how you can potentially help as well. So, but to get everything off and going here, we've reached out and got permission from one of our listeners and asked if it would be okay for us to share their story. And so I wanted to share that with you today, Steve, before we got started, because I think it is a great example of some of the things that are going on out there that people go through that we don't necessarily think about or that we take for granted. So this is from Mark, and Mark reaches out to us, and okay. So Mark reaches out and he says, I've been trying to think of a good way to approach this with y'all because I really think that y'all deserve to know the wonders of beekeeping and how they can really bestow certain things upon us. This has nothing to do with the above, but again, y'all should know this, and it's a long story, so sorry, not sorry. I am a 10-year Navy master at arms, military police. I spent the first 8 years of my time in the Navy as a canine officer working and training with military working dogs, or MWD. I had the opportunity most naval personnel never got. I was selected to deploy to Afghanistan with my dog and completed a 9-month deployment with relative ease. After you go to a combat zone, they have you do a redeployment, in quotes, hoping to normalize you before you go back to your families and communities. The training, also in quotes, lasts like maybe a week. It's a joke. When I got back, I really thought that I was doing all right, and I kept feeling for several years that that was the same. But the longer the time frame away from combat got, the worse the coping got. I was getting by with an increasing amount of alcohol, and I finally went for help at my wife's bequest, and the help that I got from the Navy was actually really helping me. But I had a lot going on in my head and a lot of weight on my shoulders, and I was up to a 6-pack a night just on a light day. On December 29th of 2019, while I was at work on a Sunday morning, my wife and 3-year-old daughter went to church like normal. An unstable man chose to stand up and start shooting, killing 2 people in the church. For those of you in the Texas area, I'm sure that you've probably heard of the event and remember it well. I got to the church before most of the responding officers, the EMS, and the fire. My family was physically fine, but we'll see how that turns out for them in the future. After that day, the help from the Navy went to the shitter. My alcohol dependency magnified into full-blown functioning alcoholism. The Navy sent me to a specialized military mental health facility for inpatient care then to an outpatient facility, all covering about a total of 3 months' time. While I was in the inpatient care, I was repetitively told that I needed to find a hobby to replace my old habits. I've always been a little different, so I started looking into beekeeping. I soon started listening to y'all's podcast and bought a hive filled with 10,000 new little pets. I've continued listening to the podcast, and now and now also the Hive Jive Junkie podcast on Patreon. It seems that the Navy will likely decide that my career as a sailor is ending very soon. This thought scares the shit out of me, but now, however, I know a better way to handle the stress and the uncertainty in my life. I've been managing my depression, suicidal thoughts, and PTSD with the knowledge that I can, at any point, go out in my backyard for some bee therapy. Beekeeping and the knowledge that I've picked up along the way about these fascinating little creatures has literally saved my life, my marriage, and my liver. Through the Hive Jive, or though the Hive Jive was and is not the sole reason for this success, it does account for the majority of it. My subscription is what it is, and you guys can do what you want with it, but I really think that it is best that I do that so that you guys can continue doing what you're doing to help others out there who may be going through what I was going through. With the most sincerity that I can muster, thank you for being you. Now, be good and be safe, Mark.
That's amazing. It's an
Yeah.
amazing story. I can I can personalize a lot of that, and unfortunately, his story, as heartbreaking and as tough as it is to even listen to, is not abnormal, and that shouldn't be normal. And I think what he says, coming back and talking about finding bees as a hobby, we talk about them as a purpose. Finding your purpose and building relationships in your local community is why we exist. So he found a relationship through the podcast, right? He might not be talking to you, but you're speaking to him and speaking into him and pouring into him. And then he has a purpose of taking care of those bees, right? Being able to distract from the normal things that are going on maybe in his mind at the time. And unfortunately, it's not as uncommon as you would think it is, especially for combat veterans that are coming back. OEF, OIF, Vietnam. These guys, we have them in our organization all over the place, all over the country. And we hear these stories consistently. And I'd love to be able to actually talk to Mark, and hopefully he's listening. And Mark, if you are listening, reach out to us, man. We are, what it seems like is we're in your area, and we'd love to have a conversation and just build a relationship with you and see how we can help you out. And maybe you can teach us a thing or two.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mark does actually live here in Texas, and I have provided him with your guys' information so that he can go through and reach out to you guys. And that was part of our conversation whenever I was asking if it was okay for us to share his story, because I did think that it was very important to be able to hear that firsthand from somebody's perspective that actually went through it, to help our listeners kind of understand where that goes through and where that comes from. And part of the thing that he was talking about my subscription is what it is. He is one of our Patreon members that is actually at the royal court level. He is somebody that is an actual sponsor of the show now, and he chose to do that just because he feels like that way he can help us continue to get the message out and help other people find this and be able to bring some sense of stability and calm to their mind and to their lives. I think one of the things that kind of goes hand in hand with something that you and I have talked about, and also what he said, though, is that he now has a purpose. He has a reason to leave the house and go do something. And even if that just is that there are 30,000 little critters out there that are depending on him, that need him to help them with certain aspects of stuff, he has a purpose. He has a reason to get up and go outside and do something. And one of the things I've mentioned on the show before as well is that not just with PTSD, but with a lot of different mental handicaps and disabilities and things, beekeeping is amazing on the calming effect that it can actually have on people. It kind of puts them into this Zen state and it calms them down. It helps them focus on something, but also just be amazed by what's going on in front of them.
Absolutely. There's an analogy that we use kind of when we're going through this anxiety or hypervigilance or the depression states that are typically familiar in the PTS realm. And I want to also remind the listeners that trauma is trauma on your brain. It doesn't have to be a combat trauma. childhood abuse, sexual trauma, any type of trauma is going to have the same effect on your brain, right? So beekeeping as a whole on a therapy is good for all sorts of trauma because it affects your brain the same way. And as you walk through and you're looking for, I know veterans for sure, especially, airborne guys or guys that have been in combat are constantly looking for that little bit of rush. And that little bit of rush comes when 10,000 bees are coming at your face, right? Like that rush is real, right? It's a real adrenaline booster. It's a real anxious type of thing that you go through. And you could be in for 10 years beekeeping and you're still like, oh man, these things are a little bit crazy today. And you can tell by their pitch, you can tell by how they're flying around if they're angry or not, right? But as you're suiting up, literally suiting up for your safety, right? You go into these hives and then you follow a process. So you're overcoming your fear, you're overcoming the anxiety, and you're going through a systematic process, similar to team units kicking down doors or following a process in the military with your teammates. You follow that process, you see the success of that, you close and button up the hive, and you walk away with a sense of accomplishment, right? That's huge on how do you fulfill your normal days through the anxiety of any situation. You have a practical application right in your backyard.
That's great. That's amazing. And that's actually a great way to look at it too, because you go into it with a goal, even if that goal is just simply to check and see how they're doing. You may not necessarily be trying to requeen or split, but you go into it with a goal. And then when you're done, you can leave most of the time with that sense of satisfaction that you have accomplished something. You set out to do a goal, you finish that goal, you know that everybody's doing well. Of course, with anything, just, beekeeping in general, that you do have some of those where you open it up and then there's a challenge and it's like, where is my queen and why are you doing this? And that shouldn't be there, but that then also gives you obstacles to overcome.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
like for you and I, doing bee removals, for instance, one of my favorite aspects of it is you never know what the bees have done or what you're going to find. You open up that cavity and I'm always amazed and impressed at how they made it work, how they figured out how to get it in there. But then it becomes a puzzle for me to solve too. How do I
Yes.
get into this space? How do I open it up? How do I do the best that I can without, causing the homeowner any additional damage or money needing done, and get the bees out of there safely and be able to rescue the bees as well. And so it adds all these different aspects into it that make it very fulfilling in a certain way. Even though it is hard work, it's very fulfilling work.
Right. And it comes back to problem solving, finding that purpose, right? What is your purpose when you're removing bees from a home? Safety, right? You don't know the situation. Their kids might be allergic. The neighbors might be allergic. You don't really know. So you have to plan, and then you have to adjust the plan. And it's so cool because that is military life in general. If everybody's heard the hurry up and wait, I mean, it's like we're there early and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're just sitting around for 2 hours, right? But you are purposeful in that. And when you go into a house and now you say, okay, maybe these homeowners don't have a lot of money. Even if they did, you still don't want to cause damage to somebody's house.
Right.
Now you're, maybe using an IR camera to try to get a better perspective of where these things actually are instead of ripping off the side of a house, right? Because I've seen people do that.
I have too. Yeah.
And hopefully that's not what people do. And if you're listening, please don't do that. Invest, $150 into an IR camera that fits on your phone, and you'll do the homeowner a better service. Mm-hmm. And then the application of removing them. Now you have two things going on. You're worried about the house, you're worried about the structure, and you're also worried about the safety of the bees. Can we safely remove these bees? Because you would like to relocate them and have them, thrive,
right.
In your apiary, right? So, and then the buttoning up part. To me, that's always the biggest problem solver is, okay, how am I going to make this look like it did before, right? So you're not only a beekeeper, pest control, and then you're also a handyman at the same time. It encompasses a lot, so not everybody can do that, but it's a really cool opportunity to kind of hone your skills, overcome obstacles, like you said.
Yeah, it really is. It's not anything that I personally ever thought that I was going to be involved in. That's the oddity. Yeah, that's the oddity of it. I didn't go to school for anything related to entomology, insects, bees, nothing like that. I went to school way back in the day for stuff closer to this, broadcasting, mass communication. And I wanted a beehive, but we all saw how that turned out. That drastically snowballed out of control and kind of took over my life. And some people, like, it was okay because I was fascinated by it, and I went through and kind of learned all these different little things, and it was really interesting. So this is completely off subject,
Hmm.
but this is a strange revelation that I had actually this morning. And it just kind of, it struck me. So we're going to tell a little story here real quick, but nothing to do with the rest of all this stuff. But so back, like growing up, right? The Alien franchise, like the first movie was terrifying and everything else and whatnot. But then when the sequel came out and you got to see the alien queen,
Hmm.
and it worked in this whole structure and hierarchy and all this other stuff. And then odd parallel to that, but Star Trek, the Borg and the Borg Queen. Like the
Okay. Yeah.
Borg was something that was kind of terrifying, but then when you actually see the Borg Queen, I have always been extremely fascinated by those types of genres. And then I was sitting there this morning and I was like, wow. And I'm really into beekeeping, and it's almost the exact same thing.
It's almost the same. Yeah. It really is. And one of those things too of learning and educating and teaching the newbies that come into the program they are almost overwhelmed, fascinated,
Yes.
right? There's so many parallels between military. If, every beekeeper has a job, and if those jobs aren't done, the colony collapses. And it's very similar in the military, right? If you're not doing your job as a team, the team collapses. So the parallels are so familiar that you kind of just fit in. And as Mark knows, you can literally change one addiction for another.
Yeah.
But it's healthy, right? What we have found is that not only does that person become more educated, more involved in their own self-care, because they have to now take care of themselves in order to take care of the bees. And it just happens that way. They're all of a sudden like not drinking because they understand that like the sweat that comes out of your pores when you're drinking is very attractive to bees. And for whatever reason, you'll be standing 2 or 3 guys, and one of them drank the night before, and they're swarming him,
Yep.
and you're just fine. And they're like, well, dang, I don't want that to happen anymore. We have one of our guys who literally stopped drinking over 3 or 4 days that we did something back to back to back, right? He was he's an Army veteran and part of the program, lives a little bit south of us. And it was like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and on the Sunday we were doing a removal, and he literally was like, man, you know what I would have been doing all weekend? I said, no, man. He goes, I would have been drunk on the couch.
Oh.
That's what I would have been doing. And we did like an event, 2 removals. It was awesome for him to be able to notice that and reflect that, damn, I would have been drinking this whole time if I wasn't beekeeping.
Yeah.
And how that translates to real life is when you're the typical custom of military is, let's go talk about this at the bar, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you're having a problem. Hey, buddy, I got you. Let's go to the bar.
Right.
That starts a chain of events that are choices that are not healthy choices.
Yeah.
So first, now you're spending your money out there. Now you're drinking. So you're, like Mark said, your liver and things like that, right? But then you're spending time away from your family, the people that are closest to you that know these effects, and now you're actually away from them. So now you're having to come home. Him or her is probably upset, right, that you've been gone for so long with your buddies, etc. And you're not creating this divide. So there's a lot of unhealthy practices, much less if you're actually drinking and you get pulled over, God forbid, that now you're even in more trouble from trying to get through a circumstance, right?
Right. And putting other people into danger depending on how you're coming home and when, and yeah.
Exactly. And now the beekeeping side, what we found is that this individual gets involved. They love what they're doing. The community supports over not only in the local community with your mentor, but also the Facebook platform where we literally are talking to each other every day, back and forth, sharing stories, sharing pictures, etc., and getting to know each other. And you're doing things in a healthy manner. You're excited. You're showing pictures to your kids. They get involved. Your spouse gets involved. And all of a sudden, it literally becomes a family event.
Right. And it brings everybody together.
Absolutely. We're a family organization. We tell everybody all the time, are our kids welcome to this? Absolutely. Absolutely. We love the family unit. And we believe that person that becomes healthy then therefore helps that family become healthy, which therefore translates to the community becoming healthy, right? Because veterans are typically leaders. Whatever rank they were in the military, they come out as leaders,
right.
Whether they're leading 1 or 250 as a company commander. you're still leading people. You're responsible for people. And once you start getting that jive back, you get back in the groove, man, it's amazing what happens when the confidence level comes back and you now have a purpose and a direction in your life. And this is just one avenue to do that for beekeepers.
So let's go back real quick and tell us how the organization came to be.
Well, it started off with one beekeeper and 12 veterans. And we found out that doesn't work as well as you think it would. Although all the intentions were great, there's not enough time for individual communication and relationships. Trying to herd 12 people at what a hive might do on a certain weekend is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
So you might plan out, hey, let's get together in 2 weeks, but then it rains or some other circumstances. So we figured out that we needed to be more flexible. And we started transitioning to a one-on-one mentor platform so that you have one-on-one communication, you have full ample time. You're not overwhelming the mentors, because one of the things is, as a beekeeper, trying to train 12 people, that's a lot of commitment. And for a volunteer, to me, in my opinion, it's too much. But one-on-one now becomes a relationship, now becomes a friend, now becomes a friend of a family, now becomes, the next year your apiary is growing and maybe you need to hire somebody. Why wouldn't you hire that guy or that girl, right? So as we started transitioning, we noticed that we were not able to really fundraise. So it goes right back into why we started doing the removals. Yep. The removals came from revenue. We had no other way to do it other than remove bees and or panhandle for money. And our thought process was, how can we be a responsible organization that teaches men and women to fish if we're constantly asking for handouts?
Right.
So our thought process went to, let's go earn it. And that's where the removals came from. So all that cash from the removals went directly into the program. Still nobody gets paid. Still nobody has a salary job or anything like that. It's turned into a full-time job. Thank God, that's great. But at the same time, that's how we started the program, was through effort, work, and opportunity. If you find an opportunity and you create something from it, that's what we want to train and teach. And the underlying levels of Hives for Heroes is, how do you become self-sufficient? And that's by seeing opportunities and taking those opportunities to benefit not only yourself, but also the organization as a whole and the customer, which the customer could be anybody, somebody at an end product or a removal, or even just somebody that wants to volunteer, right? How do we help with that? Because our overall mission is suicide prevention. How do we prevent suicide? And our belief is we do that through purpose and relationships.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's a great, it's noble, it's honorable, and it's very, very much needed, especially in today's world. All the stuff going on out there, even people that are not necessarily involved in the services or anything else, in today's world, with all of the quarantines and all of the stress, people's anxiety can be up through the roof, and you can have all these other issues. One of the gentlemen that works for me as a contract employee, and the listeners hear me talk about every once in a while, named Jorge, he uses beekeeping and the removal as a coping mechanism for stress and for anxiety. And he hasn't necessarily, he's not, like you said, he didn't go and serve and have a military incident that caused PTSD, but he has other things in his life that do cause him stress and anxiety. And he'll, if we go too long without doing one, like the wintertime just drives him crazy, because he's like, when can we get back into a hive? When are we doing another removal? Like, you call me as soon as something comes up. And then sometimes it gets to even if you don't need help, call me. Like, I want to go,
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so a lot of people can actually use it for that, but it's amazing that you guys managed to put all this together. You had a need. You've got these veterans that have something that they need to supplement that bad habit for a good habit that can actually build on. And then you went out there and you found, like, doing the removals, and it worked out multiple ways, because as your guys' actual slogan says, you're not just saving bees, you're saving a life.
Absolutely.
And, the removal then goes through and helps fund the organization. You get the bees, which you guys then can put into the hive, which goes into part of that whole program as well. And I know the organization, like, you guys started off there in the Houston area, and you have now exploded. Like, you're all over the country, and that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, within about 18 months, it really took off. And I would say probably in the last the funniest thing is our biggest explosion is through quarantine, right? Because beekeeping is an activity that you can do, one, in your backyard, and two, with, proper social distancing, with, less than 10, all those rules that are coming out, depending on what state you're in and county you're in, et cetera. But you can follow all those guidelines and still be successful.
Yeah.
And the support network over the technology has been able to help as well, because I mean, it's really cool to see stuff from Alaska that, come through and be like, that's a bear. Like, Valerie, that's a bear in your backyard. And that's a concern that you have that we don't have in Texas. I mean, not in Houston, not in urban Houston,
Right.
We've done a lot of different things and just tried to be very flexible and very creative. And again, back to the opportunity is when you see an opportunity, you have the ability to say yes, right? And then being open and honest with your clients and the people that are supporting is, hey, look, we might not be able to do that right now, but if we have an opportunity to talk through this and plan it with you, maybe that's another leg that we can build through the program, because we want to be able to take from the removal all the way to the purchase, right?
Right.
We want to be able to solve a lot of problems, but also to keep the family engaged. Not everybody's going to want to be a beekeeper, and that's okay, because there's opportunities for you to process the honey, bottle the honey, label the honey, sell the honey. There's so many other things to do than just the beekeeping that we're very inclusive. So it becomes not only a veteran organization, but a veteran supporting organization, meaning we have civilians all over the country that are providing their time, knowledge, expertise, skills, maybe a box, maybe a bee suit that they could donate or things like that. Because we're so open, we can kind of accept anything and push it back out to the people in the organization that need it. Some guys don't have funds for a bee suit. We can find it for them. That's the beauty of the program, is we're always helping each other. Yeah. Right. And anything that comes into headquarters, boom, that goes out, because we don't want it. So if you're donating to Hives for Heroes and say you ship something to the Hives for Heroes address here in Houston, it ain't staying here for long. One, we don't have enough space, and two, we have too much need out in the org and other areas that we want to make sure that the proper equipment, safety equipment, just gear in general, is in the hands of the people that really can use it.
Yeah. And you did mention one little thing in there too about how your passion doesn't necessarily have to be the bees themselves. Maybe you're extremely creative and artistic. Somebody needs to design your guys' shirts. Somebody needs to work on websites. Absolutely. Somebody can be designing the labels. Somebody else who just needs something to keep them busy can go through and help with the bottling and help with the labeling and, help facilitate coordinating these donations that come in and shipping them out to where they need to be. So the organization has grown to the point where you have a lot of different facets that can go through and help provide stability for people, more than just, do you want to go, risk getting stung and put your head into a beehive? And that in and of itself is amazing too.
Yeah, it comes out of need, right? It's that opportunities that when there's something there that can present itself, and oftentimes, like we're building boxes now. Kevin is up in Montgomery County area building boxes. So we have, I believe I've told you about the memorial hives.
Yes.
He not only is building the boxes. We partnered with an organization called Helmwood Urban Lumber. Awesome guy. He takes down trees and builds them into furniture. And when we contacted him, because we just love his Instagram page, and when we contacted him, he's like, dude, I got this pine that we can mill. Like, you want to come out and do it? So we had a whole event at his place where we milled pine for the boxes. So those boxes will be our new memorial hives, which Kevin invested in a laser engraving machine.
Nice.
Like, he wants to do laser engraving. He's like, what better way to start than this? Boom. He's now made the plaques for the memorial hives of, the person that was K, and then insert extract dates, hometown. And that's a way for those that have passed to continue in spirit, still producing, literally still producing in the spirit of the bees. So we take that very, very seriously. It's humbling to be able to do something like that. It's a huge honor to them and their families. And in our future state, what we'd like to do is put a day camera, a night camera, and an infrared camera on there. so that at any point in time, their family members, whenever they have that feeling, you know, that loss, that miss, they can literally see their own family member's hive box and see their spirit going on. Those are the kinds of things that we do here in this organization. It's not just, you know, this Excel spreadsheet and revenue streams. It's
Right.
like, what are we really doing in the community to impact and make a difference?
Yeah. And I applaud you for that, because that is amazing. And it's amazing that you've managed to take this and grow it to the point that you have. And that actually just shows how much need is actually out there, and how everybody can work. If you could, I'm sure you have it hopefully handy there, but tell us all the different states that you guys currently have some representation in.
Yeah, so currently we're in 27 states. And when I mean 27 states, the way that we describe that is we have contacted and or had an alliance with the State Beekeeping Association and or the like the Texas State Apiary, right? So the actual education portion, whether it's LSU or University of Arkansas, we have a lot of people now that we can literally contact on the cell phone, right? Whether it's a president of the beekeeping organization or the heads of different organizations. So 27 now. We have the coolest ones, right? Hawaii and Alaska, right?
Right. The most extremes.
Yeah, like you
Paradise
said.
and yeah.
Yep, exactly. Like you said, plan and adjust, right? The plan was maybe we'll be in 3 states in 3 to 5 years, right? And within 4 months, you're in 27. What do you do? Right? You adjust and you build a system and build a process that is able to fulfill these needs. And we never, I mean, there's literally an entomologist in Hawaii that's just pulled in a mentor or a mentee, a newbie. That's amazing. This guy is now a newbie that is dealing with a doctor, you know, a doctor in Honolulu. That's awesome. In Alaska, right? Valerie's up in Alaska. She does an amazing job. I mean, just from day one, she came in and was super involved on the Facebook group page, posting things that are going on. Everybody knows who Valerie is. Why? Because she's involved. Yep. And she's an amazing person, right?
See, that's the crazy thing. I even know who Valerie is because she started looping us in. Like, she listens to the show. She starts looping us in on the posts that she puts out on like Instagram. And now that's how I know what's going on in Alaska now, is because I see all the stuff that she puts out there. So it's amazing.
So cool. We have Northwestern Pennsylvania. We had two veterans that came into the program. One's a mentor. She's a full bird colonel, Army retired. Connecting with another young lady that was there, and the posts that you see are like these ladies are like best friends now. You know, it blows my mind how they could be so close. The other one that really blows my mind is Northwestern Nevada. So Debbie there is the Beekeeping Association president, and she's an amazing person. Wanda's one of her friends, and Wanda took Laurel as her mentee. And they lived in the same town and never met each other.
I had no idea.
That's 4 female military veterans that got to connect with each other in places that they would have never met if it wouldn't have been for bees. Right. And that's why the network's so important, is that we support each other. You don't have just one mentor. You have 1,000 mentors, but you have one primary mentor, one that's right in your location that you can literally go and sit and drink coffee with, right? It's not only about the bees. The bees are an avenue for us to save veterans, right? So we call it veteran conservation. And I like that. So yeah, with 27 states, we had 25 2 days ago. We brought in West Virginia and Oklahoma yesterday. Very cool. And people are starting to understand that we're not asking for anything. And this is a big portion of what the program is. We don't want you to change what you do. You keep being you. We just want to connect that person to you. You know that, 10 beekeepers can talk about one question and have 45 different answers depending on the minute and season you talk to them. Yep. So it's all about that personal connection. So let them train however they want to train. We don't want to be over the top of them telling them, no, do this, this, and this. As long as you're following your county and state beekeeping laws and regulations, everything else is usually personal preference. This has worked for me. This hasn't worked for me. And we want you to be empowered, right? We want mentors to be empowered and do what you do. Build confidence in yourself while you're training somebody. That's the best way to learn anyway. And now you have the veteran that's coming in, hopefully humble, willing to listen, ready to learn. And that's your whole first year as a Hives for Hero newbie. We don't necessarily want you to have a hive. The people that have gone past that first year understand that you thought you knew something, you didn't know nothing that first year, right?
Right.
So in order to minimize the cost, we have those veterans go into the mentors apiaries, right? And maybe they're handling one or two. Maybe somebody gives them responsibility of that, but really it's about the hands-on training, practical application, which we know we learn so much, right? You'll learn 1,000 things in a 2-hour session that you can't even read that much. And like, you know, a lot of my mentors have said, bees can't read anyway. So that's where it's really valuable, but we want to empower. That's why it's empowering veterans through beekeeping, but it's really empowering everybody through beekeeping. Do what you do. We're not asking for money. We're not asking you to put stuff out of your pocket. We just want you to create a friendship. And through that friendship, however that happens, you let it happen. Different counties do it different ways. Some counties are going to be more successful than other counties. And that's all based on what your interpretation and definition is of success. Right. But that's for you to decide, not for us at some corporate high headquarters to decide. I don't think that's fair. I think it's fair to know what your needs are in your community, and you build the program there as you see fit. With our guidance, we'll always be here to support.
So you touched on the beginning stages of it. So somebody is looking to get into the program. So they come in as what you guys have dubbed as the newbie, and and they get paired up with a mentor. And then they go through and they spend that first year, you know, learning and helping and experiencing what it is without necessarily having to have all of the things that come along with having your own hive and figuring out where to put it and all that other stuff. So walk us through the stages and the hierarchy of how they move up through that system.
Absolutely. So that's the first year. And the reason for that is to minimize cost and also level expectations. So if you're somebody that's dealing with trauma, this is a problem socially anyway, but boundaries and expectations are a huge issue in our culture. Okay. It's just an issue, and I won't go too far into that. But if you can level expectations of, wow, this is what it's really like, because they might not have really known what they were getting into. But over that first year, to not have the stress of also the responsibility of killing bees, you know, on accident in your own backyard, not having somebody to ask a question to, that stress is more costly than the money that it would take to actually build this, right? But at the same time, you are money. I mean, you're talking about either getting a swarm because you know how to already somehow, you know, if you're a newbie, which you don't. And then the boxes expenses, your suit, gloves, safety gear, smoker, hive tool, all that kind of stuff, it becomes expensive. It's an expensive hobby to start.
Yeah,
it's not
no
as
such
expensive.
thing as free bees.
Exactly. No such thing as free bees. So that's the first year. We want them to get acclimated, right? Very, very opposite of what the military does to us, as Mark very much stated in his statement. Oh, it was like a week of training on how to come back. It doesn't really teach you anything. A lot of my experiences, I got it in 2011, went in from 2006 to 2011 in the Marine Corps. 2011 was very much like here, sign this, sign this, sign this. Hey, here's a PowerPoint presentation, sign this. Here's a PowerPoint presentation on suicide prevention, sign this. This tells you that you've been trained on how not to kill yourself. Right. That's not acceptable on any realm. And we also are getting into the active duty side as well. That's a start that we've been able to start talking to military institution bases, that they have a lot of land available, and we can get these guys started prior to the transition of coming out. Nice. So that's really that first year. Learn, acclimate. Second year, we want a community yard. So now you have earned a split, right? So the mentors come in with 3 or plus more years of experience that have successful beekeeping experience, and they've given permission for us to take a split from them after that first year. So nobody's given anything; it's earned, right? Yeah. And that creates confidence more so than people think it does. Now I earn that hive, and you have the choice to keep it in their yard, or we build a community yard in your area. The second year is about helping each other. Service really is what it's about. How do you serve the community in a general, but keep learning on another level? And then the third year is where you really get your own mentor type mentality. Now you're training somebody else.
Right.
which that's hugely important because now you're providing the leadership. Now you're in a leadership state where you're building others. And what better way to have your stuff together than be allowed to mentor somebody else?
Right.
That's the real crux. If you can teach it, you can do it. And
Right.
that's a really great aspect to it. But it's phased purposely. It's really like follow, serve, lead. And we do that in the military. I was talking to an individual yesterday about the rifle range. You don't just go out to the rifle range and give you a bunch of live rounds and say, shoot that way, right? You have literal classroom instruction, dry fire yard, and then live fire. There's stages for a reason. And we want to continue that because it's familiar. It's not only familiar, but it's proven successful. And as the program continues to grow, you need that leadership in those areas anyway, because somebody like myself or any one of the mentors, you can't have 15 mentors. You have to do everything in threes. That's the way the program works, is everything's in threes. So you might be able to mentor up to 3. We don't want that. We want individual mentors, but we want to stay real lean up at the top and just make sure that administrative cares are taken care of.
Right.
That's all that in reality, it's all we do at the headquarters per se. Take care of administrative things to alleviate the burdens from the one hive, one mentor, one newbie. That is the core of the program.
Yeah.
If we fail there, we fail the entire program.
Yeah, and it's a great way to have that structured and set up too, and it does make it easier when that is all you have to focus on. Like
Absolutely.
we're just here to talk about the bees while you're going through and doing that. You know, you can talk about whatever you want to while you're doing that hive inspection, and you're learning as you go. So you're supplementing that. I went to the bar to talk and have a drink. Well, now I'm going and I'm working and I'm doing this thing with the bees, but I'm still able to talk and have that relationship and communication and be able to share while you're still learning and you're doing something that is giving you a purpose. So again, I think the entire system is just a wonderful thing that you guys have actually created.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's based on the needs, and as we also say, we grow with the bees and we grow with the newbies.
Yep.
Right? That's how the organization grows. It's not forced growth; it's necessary growth. Because forced growth, you put yourself in a pattern that this plan exists, and then you don't even realize all the opportunities that are outside of that.
Yep.
When it comes to like social media, for example, you know Morgan. Morgan has crushed the social media aspect. I mean, it was just not good. We'll put it that way. Morgan comes in and says, hey, I have a strategy for this. You know, volunteers her time, her efforts, her creativity, right? She doesn't want to mess with the bees. I don't want to get stung, you know, and that's okay because you have other skills and talents that are so valuable that if you didn't exist, other people wouldn't know about the program. Right. So you can do all you want in Houston, but I also think that it's extremely, for us, with a platform that can be successful on a scalable level, I think it's really selfish to just keep it in Houston. Hey, we're doing really good stuff in Houston. Well, that's cool. You have an opportunity to save lives all over the place and you're keeping it to yourself. I think that's a little bit selfish. So that's why we scaled out, because the requests that were coming in were, hey, do you have this available in Tennessee? Do you have this available in Florida? Do you know any groups that are here? Do you know any groups that are there? So we not only partner with the organizations like the TBA or the Florida Beekeeping Association and things like that, but we also partner with other existing veteran organizations that are in the communities themselves. Charles from Georgia, they do a great job. They have 10 to 12 guys out there that are in the Macon, Georgia area that knock it out of the park. We don't want to mess with your organization. We want to support your organization. If there's anybody in Georgia that can come to you, let's feed them to you. We don't want anything from it. We don't want some finder's fee or anything like that, because our why is so different. Our why is, how do we prevent suicide? Not how do we create a revenue stream to come and fulfill some organizational goals. Our only real metric is how many touch points do we have from a newbie to a mentor, and how many of those partnerships do we have? That's our true metric, because we understand that the purpose and relationship leads to the reducing of the suicide.
Right. And it's kind of in a simpler version of that. It's networking. Like you guys are looking for the resources that you need so that you can continue bringing group A to group B so that they can actually work together and help grow everything. Um, from that perspective, what are, obviously there's all kinds of donations and things out there that people can do, but I think from conversations with you and stuff in the past, one of the key things that is really valuable to you guys is one, that mentor,
Yep, the
but then
mentor.
also space, being able to find somewhere where you guys can set up these community yards and have it be where you can have multiple individuals that can all meet at one central location to go through and work on stuff. And you've been able to work that out in a lot of different areas by working with, county extension agents and individuals in the cities and whatnot. So you've been extremely creative on the solutions to some of these challenges and problems to still continue getting this all to come together and work as fluidly as it does. And it's absolutely amazing. So if anybody out there definitely wants to help out, if you guys have resources, if you know somebody who may be a good fit for it, that was one of the things that we talked about this for the state level for Texas Beekeepers Association, and partnering with you guys as that network to kind of try to help find and allocate people in certain areas that may be able to contribute in some way. And right off the bat at the board meeting, we had one lady that was immediately wanting to be part of the Memorial Hive program. Like as soon as she heard
Absolutely.
me say that, she was like, I want to know more about it. Put me in contact with him. This means so much to me. And then we had another gentleman that was like, I know a veteran who is already a beekeeper, has been keeping bees for like a decade, an amazing individual, and he would be a great fit to be able to go in and potentially step into like a mentor type role. And so it immediately clicked with everybody there, and they were all very much on board. And that's kind of the things that we're looking for whenever we go through and talk about this, is that networking aspect of that.
Networking is amazing, and really kind of overcoming barriers. I think a cool story is the city of Lake Jackson. So it's southeast of Houston. They have an ordinance where they can't have bees in the city. And so I went down to Brazoria County, and this became a task, I guess you could say. The people there, the people in the beekeeping association were like, yeah, they won't even let us do this stuff. So I literally went to the city council meeting, and I was by myself, and I had a small presentation. I went through all the proper channels, right? Requested to speak, etc. A couple weeks out, they had a city council meeting. Within 5 minutes, they had approved Hives for Heroes to be a part of the area. They had given us a plot of land to be able to rent out for $1 for 100 years. To be able to provide this to the veterans in the Lake Jackson area. So what that does is not only provides that to the veterans, but also the mentors, who many are civilians. Right. So now you're satisfying and solving problems already in the beekeeping association they couldn't really get around, but now they have a more central location that they can go to. Yeah. So you're trying to, again, we do win-win-win. How does it win for everybody? It wins for the city. It wins for the veterans. It wins for the beekeeping association. It wins for the bees. I mean, there's 4 right there. So we're constantly trying to be creative. You had mentioned counties, and right now we're in 17 counties in Houston with multiple people in those areas. Yeah. Right. And some of them are far off Northeast Texas. Like I don't travel there. We'll put it that way. And we're able to connect with guys in those organizations and connect them to a mentor. Yeah. People are starting to understand our platform. We've definitely gotten the "I'm not here for soliciting, I don't know what you want" kind of comments. But after, we send them the link to the website, we tell them what we're actually doing, that we don't want anything from them. Like we just don't. It's almost hard to hear sometimes when somebody's calling you that doesn't want anything from you. Yeah. Right. And so it's almost unbelievable at some points to some conversations, which is really funny because at the end of the conversation, they're so on board. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So one of the challenges that we have is being able to continuously connect with everybody because there's so many people. So that's why we use the social media platforms. It's a way to group and have conversations as a whole, because something that you might have learned in Texas could be very, very beneficial in Louisiana and Florida.
Right. Yeah, beekeeping is beekeeping to that degree. You do change a few things here and there, but outside of the beekeeping aspect itself, it goes back to, you know, your guys' core purpose, which is saving a life, saving a veteran, saving somebody who otherwise, left to their own devices, could have drifted away. And, you know, this helps pull them back in and anchor them and ground them. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
We've
it's
had we've had presentations with Wounded Warrior Project. I had one probably a month or two ago, and in one conversation, I believe there was 26 people online. Like they had already pre-screened, like, hey, would you be interested in beekeeping type thing? 19 joined the program.
yeah,
And the feedback was, we have never had that high of a success from a meeting to a sign up that I've ever seen, that person had ever seen. We have some amazing, one of our mentors now, Steven, is an amazing mentor. He's constantly, you know, pinging, showing things on the social media platforms, etc., but also really cares, because his story is very similar to Mark's story as well. And you start finding out that a lot of stories are very similar to that. I had huge alcohol issues. I had huge issues with anger, hurting people, like literally like having issues of breakdowns, blackouts, red outs, and therapy was not helping me. Beekeeping helped me. Beekeeping helped me in a manner that I can't even explain. It's so important. And when you're talking about the alcoholism, that's not something easy to get out of. That's a real, true struggle. You, especially when you have the feelings of worthlessness and depression and isolation, that cycle goes real bad to then suicidal ideations, planning for suicide, and then carrying out the act. And that temporary relief to that problem, or a permanent relief to a temporary problem, because we all struggle. We just forget that. We forget that other people are struggling too. And when you can get with a band of brothers, or a band of brothers and sisters that are kind of going through the same struggle, it's never going to be the same as yours. You have to identify that. It's not your struggle. It's similar, because we're human and we have human emotions. And at the basic level, that's all we are, is human emotions. So the fear, the anger, the anxiety, those are all things that we can relate to. I can't necessarily relate to your story, but I can relate to the feeling of your story. Yeah. And so when you're talking about him, even dealing with the Texas shooting, he's out of, he has no control over a situation where he's not even there. And now you're trying to, kick into gear. I mean, he's a deployed veteran. You kick into gear, trust me. And he's going to save his family and the people that are there. That's got to be a feeling of helplessness as well. That how do you overcome that, right? How does your family overcome that? There could be a situation where his family is now overcoming it because of bees too, because that is trauma.
Yeah, and that's what he says. When they left that, they are seemingly fine now, but who's to say what they're going to be in a few years? Because as he mentioned on his, when he first got out, he thought he was okay. He thought he was coping. He thought he was doing all right. But then how he was coping started kind of getting out of control. And he started realizing, I'm not all right.
You need more alcohol to cope, right? And our goal is not to cope, because here's the other thing too. And we're having a lot of law enforcement things going on right now.
Right.
Trauma is trauma again. Law enforcement, first responders deal with trauma differently than veterans do. And the reason is because it's necessary. We leave for 8 months to a year at a time. We come back. We're different people. Our family's different people. Every day, first responders come back home.
Yeah.
So it's a different type of coping. They have to put on a uniform and take it off. Put on a uniform and take it off. But here, it's still the same. It's still the same trauma. They've still seen the atrocities of what normal people don't see or experience. Yeah. Right. So that is something that we are leaning forward into as well, is not only military, but first responders, because they are heroes. Right. So we want to make sure that we're open. And a lot of veterans are first responders.
Yep.
They come out and they see that structure, they see the hierarchy, they see the camaraderie, and that's what they're looking for. So we can help with that as well.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, it's just these things, a lot of times it leaves you for a lack of words. Both how inspiring it is and just how wonderful it is that you guys are able to provide the platform to be able to try to help these individuals and help bring them back around. And then, I mean, it just, icing on the cake, it gets to be beekeeping related. So it's just,
Absolutely. And, we want to be very forward with who we are, right? We are an organization. We're a community that
right.
serves each other, right? This isn't about one person. It's not about anything that goes on outside of how can we connect you to somebody in your local area that you can build a relationship with by driving that purpose. And we are a huge team. Everybody contributes. Everybody has special skills and talents and humor, like just different things that come in where people are telling jokes, and it's kind of a veteran community, so they can be a little bit different jokes. It's funny, right? It's because we have a different way of talking, and the ability for the mentors to see that as well, it opens their eyes. And we didn't want to be a veteran only community, and this is the reason why. We have to assimilate. There isn't like, oh, you're a veteran, so you're now just you're accepted like that. No, we're in society, and it's our responsibility to assimilate and get along with everybody. We can be leaders in that society, but that's your choice. You can't just be, oh, that's a veteran over there, that's what he's going to do. You still have to be socially acceptable, transition, because your family is very important as well, right? And those kind of unhealthy habits and mannerisms that we had before need to transition into healthy things for our kids, right? For our spouses, our kids, so that they can grow up understanding what that looks like. But the community as a whole is benefited because now we're talking. We're not the veterans and the civilians, because those mentors, trust me, they are heroes. Trust me. We have the hashtag is be a hero. Why? Because you're saving a life. When you're a mentor and you come into this program and you're taking on the responsibility of somebody, trust me, you are a hero. There is no doubt about that in my mind. So how we define it is you are saving a life. You're not only saving the bees, but you are saving the vets. And that's hugely important for everybody to kind of to wrap their heads around, is you providing that service, that time, that minimal equipment or that minimal donation is literally you being a hero.
Right. Hives for heroes from heroes. We all have the capacity to be a hero in our own way if we reach out and help other people and try to help pull everybody up instead of pushing people down or trying to hold them back.
Absolutely. And we're so grateful for you, for this opportunity to be able to speak, because the more people know about it, the more they can do about it. If you don't know about it, it's really tough, but as social media has been great. The freest thing and the best thing that you could ever do for the program and for Hive Jive is literally just like and share.
Yep.
I mean, put a comment on there, like and share. It's totally free. It costs you nothing, but it could be in the eyes of somebody else that didn't know about it previously. It could save somebody like Mark. It could save somebody like me or the other veterans that are in the program. It could give an opportunity for somebody that maybe is not a mentor, but has special talents and skills that want to do something else. They want to do something different. And maybe they're an accountant. Maybe they help us on the CPA level. I don't know what that looks like. I truly believe that the best things are ahead of us because those ideas haven't shown up yet.
Right.
Those people haven't come up into our organization yet. There's a really cool quote that I love that says, people will always be your problem and people will always be your solution. And I believe we have a lot of solutions in Hives for Heroes. So, whether it's talking to a beekeeping association that has a large reach or just a single individual that has a neighbor that all of a sudden knows about it, right? Again, veteran conservation through bee conservation. It's just what we do, and we love it. It's literally a full-time job now, and just absolutely love it to death. It's pretty amazing.
Well, don't be surprised after all of this if you don't start replacing images of bears in people's backyard with images of kangaroos and koalas, because this goes all over the world. We have a huge following in Australia, and they are very fun, very vocal listeners out there all across the globe. So now your message has went from just here in the United States. You started in Texas, you spread throughout the United States. Well, now we threw it all the way across the globes. So
I love Aussies. The Aussies we serve with, they were training with us on the 15th MU in 2010. So we had Aussies, and then we went over to New Zealand with the Kiwis, and man, such a good group of people. Just amazing hearted people, happy people, just obviously willing to serve. And I mean, they love Marines over there too. So we had such a great time. We actually docked in Darwin and I had a really cool experience out in Darwin, and just amazing people. I've loved my experiences with those guys.
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed the things that I have, just even through communications, emails and social media and messages and stuff, the things that I've been able to see and experience and learn through their eyes, as they share all this stuff with us, and they're like, oh, this is what I'm doing today, or check this out, and we'll get these random pictures, and it's kind of like what you were talking about with Alaska. You're like, is that a bear in your backyard? I see this picture of like all these kangaroos everywhere, and they're like, oh, that's just another, that's just a regular morning. They don't have deer, they have kangaroo.
It's like your possum,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
It's just a normal occurrence to them, but to us, it's really cool. And we've really enjoyed all of that.
We've gotten reached out to from Europe. We've gotten reached out to from Iran. There's a doctor in Iran that does similar to what we do in the Houston area, urban, right? So rooftop beekeeping.
Yeah.
How do you solve problems?
Yep.
And there's not a lot of just, hey, there's a field right over there in the middle of Houston, right? So how do you solve that? Well, you get on the rooftops. Sandra, who's out in the DFW, northern DFW area. You might actually know her.
I know Sandra, yeah.
She's putting beekeeping equipment, hives, etc. on hotels,
yep.
right? So she's taken a huge liking to what our mission is, and is just an amazing human being. She had an article written about her here probably like 2 weeks ago or so that we shared on our platform. Very invested. She's hooked us up with probably like 3 or 4 different mentors, one being in Massachusetts. He was out here in the Brazos Valley area, moved to Massachusetts, and we have a collaboration going on with now him, so Hives for Heroes, and the Boy Scouts of America in Massachusetts.
That's awesome.
The opportunities of saying yes are endless. What you have to, of course, manage that growth and be able to say no as well, because you can't do everything. But at the same time, how many opportunities are out there that we just look by every day?
Right.
Every day we go, oh, that'd be pretty cool. That's probably for somebody else. Right. Well, maybe it's for somebody else in our organization. Maybe it's a like or a desire or a love that you can provide, and we give you the platform to do so.
Right.
Right. This is a collaborative effort. It doesn't have anything to do with individuals. It's a collective team that goes and has the same mission. And that's why it's so powerful, because it doesn't have anything to do with the individual unless you're right there, like I said, at the core of the organization. One hive, one mentor, one newbie. That's the core. That's where you get that real interaction, man. And that's where those successes come from, and those friendships, and that lifelong love of beekeeping. Because I guarantee you, if you don't run the first day, and even if you do, you end up just being enthralled. I don't even know a good word to say, because you're just overwhelmed on the amazingness of bees,
right? How
they do what they do, what they're doing at different times, how they've lasted so long. It's just beautiful. And there's really no other way to communicate it other than it's amazing.
It is.
Right? And once you get involved in that, it's really hard to back out. It's really hard to back. There's people that are selling bee equipment, and they're like, it breaks my heart, but I'm, now have over 5 years become allergic to the stings.
Right.
Or something like that, some kind of medical issue, or maybe a travel issue. And they're like, it breaks my heart to have to get rid of this. And I want to still be involved in the groups, but I just can't do the beekeeping aspect. And we have an avenue for that as well.
Yeah, that is awesome. Tell everybody out there, if somebody wants to get a hold of you guys, give them that means to do so, your webpage, social media, contact, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. We are blessed to have everything at Hives for Heroes. So it's www.hivesforheroes.com, Instagram and Facebook. Just look up at Hives for Heroes. If you're a veteran or a mentor, please get onto our group page. It's the Hives for Heroes group. It has an admin on it, so you'll have a series of questions. But if you're interested in mentoring or being a newbie, the application is right online. It's at hivesforheroes.com, and you go in and fill out a single form. We collect the information that we need to be able to match you. That information doesn't go anywhere outside of us, and we match you with somebody in your geographical areas. So it's really cool. We had a guy yesterday. His name's Dan. He had given up on beekeeping because somebody out in California told him no. Right. And it just so happened that last week we had a guy from Sacramento say, hey, if you have anybody in 2 hours, because he does what you do, right? It's bee removal, employees.
Yeah.
He's all over the city, all over the county, everywhere. And he goes, if you have anybody, you send them to me and we will take care of them. So this guy that was going to quit is no longer going to quit. And that's what we really want. Our job is to not take no for an answer and go out and find you somebody that will get you to your goals, right? So at Hives for Heroes, everything's on the webpage. We have like an outline of what we do, who we are, how to apply to the programs, and we'll reach out to you typically within 24 hours. So you'll be getting an email from us within 24 hours of, hey, we got your information and we're matching you. And if you're a mentor and you're waiting, hey, thank you so much for being a mentor. We are trying to find a newbie in that area to match you with. So everything is driven from that newbie perspective. How can we support them? And then, on Facebook and Instagram, please like and share. We have some amazing stories out there. You can see personal testimonies from individuals that are on there. We come out with a personal testimony every week. So
Nice.
you can kind of see how large the organization is becoming when you can literally say a new story is coming out every week for a newbie or a mentor. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool too, because we want people to understand the stories. And like I said, like and share, post it to your story. Do the same thing with Hive Jive, man. We've connected people, and it's just that network, man. You just hashtag, like you said, just hashtag it. It doesn't cost much. Actually, it costs nothing but your time, and it's super beneficial to that next person. And we're always looking for that next veteran. Once we've partnered with somebody, our mission is the next veteran.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and speak with me today and to share with everybody out there in the world the importance of what you guys are doing and how it all works. And hopefully, be it a mentor or a newbie, hopefully we're able to reach some people out there and help them kind of find an avenue back into this realm of salvation that they can actually use to bring themselves back down and be grounded and stable. And I hope that that it does resonate with a lot of people out there for sure. So I thank you again for your time. Greatly appreciate it. And you guys keep rocking on out there, keep doing what you're doing, and keep saving lives.
Absolutely. We thank you for having us. Much appreciated. Have a great day.
You too, sir.
All right, bye.
Woohoo!
That's it.
That's it.
Oh,
Sweet. Yeah, you rocked that, man. That was awesome.
This Hive Jive production was made possible by amazing patrons like you, and we appreciate your support. To all our Hive Jive junkies out there, you truly are the bee's knees.